Hey, Wemberg World Entertainment, and episode 4 of it, Welcome to Derry, is here, and this is moving the story forward quite nicely. Another great episode here. We've learned a lot this time about what's going on, what the military are doing, what it is exactly they're looking for, and how pretty much Pennywise works. We really get into that, which is great. So this episode, we do have the kids. Of course, they had the photos that showed Pennywise and the other deceased kids and stuff. They bring it to the cops, and quite like I was expecting, the images ended up not showing the ghosts and pretty much the goblies and ghoulies of the kids. But it did still have the Pennywise image. Now, the cops obviously didn't believe any of it and pretty much told him to get out and stuff. At the school, the main girl, her name is Lily, so that's the one who keeps ending up in Jupiter Hill, which is the funny farm basically, and her at least old friend Marge is being set up to kind of get her back into her good graces, and it's all applied. They're going to try and embarrass her, obviously, which that comes about. The pilot's kid, Leroy's kid, Will, he ends up being kind of the link this time to Pennywise in this episode. And it's quite interesting what happens this time around, because he goes fishing with his father, and while they're fishing, he catches a fish. They're like fly fishing, and he catches a fish, but it breaks away. So the father's like, okay, take my rod, I'll go get a new fly for it because you've lost yours. So the dad goes off to the car, and Will's standing in the stream, and he looks down, he sees a fish swim up to him, and then turns around and swims down. And as he leans over, a hand comes out and grabs him and pulls him into the water. It's obviously Pennywise, but he's coming to Will in the image of his father, all burnt up like he's came out of a plane crash, and he's warning Will, and Will's trashing around the water. The dad hears it, he goes running back, pulls him out, and Will tells Leroy exactly what just happened. And you can see that moment of the father kind of like, what's he talking? But when he lifts his arms up, his arms have bruises and are covered in blood. Not his blood, but obviously blood of something holding on, which is kind of... And then Will looks over his shoulder, and the father and the red balloon is floating across. And what's interesting about this moment is it's not just Will seeing the balloon, the father is seeing the balloon as well. So that's really where Pennywise is really starting to come out here. Of course, his wife, Leroy's wife, Charlotte, she goes to the police station. She wants to see the guy, Hank, who's accused of murdering the kids at the theatre, and she's being told, no, you're not part of the family or anything like that, so on your way. She goes to see the mother and pretty much gets permission from the mother, gets the mother to write her a letter. So apparently Charlotte was part of like a rights movement for blacks from where they originally were. I think she said Oklahoma. So she goes back to the cop shop, which police station, hands one of the cops the letter, and he's like, you'll have to wait till the Sarge comes back. And she's like, well, when's he coming back? And he goes, who knows? And he starts kind of threatening her, like, you better leave or you'll end up in a cell with him. And she basically tells him, I can bring down hell in this place. She pretty much tells him all the kind of groups she was a part of, and there pretty much be marches out in the street. So he does let her see Hank, and the suspicion is confirmed. Hank did leave the house to meet up with a woman, but not just a woman, a white woman, and he's more willing to pretty much go to prison than, as he says, he will be just strung up from a tree immediately if they find out he had an affair with a white woman. So that's all that type of stuff. With the school stuff, Marge convinces Lily to have lunch with her, but just to her on her own. So she's having lunch, and she's kind of asking her questions about her new friends, which is Will and all the rest of them. And she's like, I'm not here to gossip. But like the jock off the school comes over and says hi to them, and they're like, oh my god, like, he's so into you, maybe you should go over and talk to him. And we find out what the plan is. She goes off to put some makeup on in the bathroom. And the other girls, the popular girls, come over to Marge and like, you know, is she going for it? And she's like, yeah. And they're like, don't chicken out now. And their plan is to set her up to go over to try and talk with this jock. And he's going to reject her and embarrass her in front of the whole school. But Marge goes in to make sure Fat Lily is coming out. But then Lily goes to the actual toilet because she's a bit nervous. By the way, Lily has tablets that she gave to herself, Will, Rich, and I can't remember the other girl's name. I think, is it Lola? I think it's Lola. Unless that's the mother. I think it's Lola though. That she snuck out of her mother's purse, apparently. I'm assuming it's Xanax or something, because she's like, oh, my mother says it makes all of her fears and stuff go away. She just slips one under her tongue. So they all have these tablets now. And while she's in the bathroom, Marge is about to actually say, look, I need to tell you that this is a setup. And her eyes start bulging out of her head, and they come out like these weird long worm things. Lily can hear this happening. She goes to take the tablet but drops it down the toilet, so she can't get out in time. Marge goes running off and goes into like the wood shop in the school, gets a chisel and starts chiseling it into her eye, but it has no effect, so she sees a bandsaw and jumps up. This is disgusting, by the way, when you're watching it. She jumps up and starts running these bulging eyes through the bandsaw, and Lily comes in and stops her. And she's on top of her, and Marge picks up the chisel to try and go back to chiseling her eye, but Lily gets it out of her hand. But of course, now what it looks like is everyone comes in, they all see Lily sitting on top of Marge, holding the chisel covered in blood with her eyes all screwed up, and it looks like she attacked her. And of course she's trying to tell them, like, I didn't do this. So that's mainly the stuff with the kids. But then we go to, Will again sees Pennywise. And this time we do see Pennywise. It is shadow form, like it's a silhouette outside the house. But we see it in the Pennywise form. And Will sees that and he freaks out. And the father comes running out into the street. And he starts screaming like, who's out here? And as he's going back into the house, he hears something up in the tree. And he looks, it's another red balloon. And it's interesting this time because it's only him seeing the red balloon. So he's like, screw this. And he goes to the general to find out what exactly it is that they're actually looking for. And what's interesting as well is the fact that he went to Dick Halloran, who's the psychic dude, earlier in the episode, to find out what it is they're actually looking for. And he's like, I don't actually fully know myself. And I don't think I really want to know. And I don't even think we should really find it. So he goes to the general. He's like, what the hell is it we're looking for? He's brought it in to an interrogation. And he's seeing they have one of the Indian boys. And Dick Halloran comes in and sits down and goes, look, they're going to do things to you that are like horrible and painful and stuff like that. So you're best off just telling us what we need to know. Save all the aggro and the pain. And of course, he spits in his face. So he's like, all right, I'm sorry I have to do this, but... And he breaks into his mind. Now, this is where the episode gets really interesting. It's pretty much the end of the episode as well, but this is where we get the real backstory to Pennywise and how he operates. So he gets into his mind and he sees the young version of this Indian kid. And his auntie comes in. The auntie is the one who owns the second-hand store. And she's asking about, hey, you know, do you know the story of, I think it's Galuga or something like that they call it. This is what they call Pennywise. So the kid starts telling the story and we get the flashback. So we see the meteor crashing millions of years ago. There was no animal or people or anything like that. So when the meteor crashed, it split open, freeing the evil spirit. So it fed on animals and stuff, obviously, until man showed up. And of course, it was the Indian tribes. So they found parts of the meteor, broke it off and made like a dagger out of it and marked it that could fight Pennywise. But they ended up having to, like, they realized that he wasn't strong enough to leave the forest. Now, this is the thing I thought when we first heard about the forest and Pennywise was, how does he operate and can't leave it? He's not strong enough. And that is now confirmed that he wasn't strong enough. So they kept their distance. They agreed not to hunt on that land or anything like that until settlers showed up, and the settlers started hunting on that land and stuff like that. And Pennywise fed on the settlers and he destroyed them, which made him so powerful that he could now hunt beyond the forest. So the Indians go in to try and combat him, and they fail. And it just made him stronger and stronger and stronger. But they made one more attempt to lock him in. They decided they can't kill Pennywise because he's too strong, but they can try and cage him. So they get more shards and they buried him. They buried 13 of these things around the forest to trap him in. And of course, Dick stops the vision to go to the young Indian kid and say, like, great story, now show me where it is, where the shards are. And he opens the door and he goes, there, and he goes, one of the shards we now know, and this is where the episode ends, is in the house from It, the films, where Pennywise's sewer is under. That is where one of them is, and that's where the episode ends. So again, another great episode, really moving the story forward and getting that full backstory of Pennywise coming down, how he got loose and how he grew in strength and stuff. That was great, and seeing it and stuff was great. And yeah, you see all different versions of Pennywise because of course he appears to you as your worst fear. So he's like this messed up moose, he's this crazy priest type thing, he was all these different things. So another good strong episode, really moving the story forward, and it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes, especially now that even the adults are starting to see Pennywise's influence and the father Leroy seeing the balloon and stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next episode. So if you've seen this one, let us know what you think of it as well. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like, share, subscribe and all that good stuff. Cheers, I'll catch you in the next one.